right, everybody. We are back again for another episode of the Coaches Campus. A member don't know what episode we are on because we just continue to roll. We just continue to bring on dope guests from all across the world. So remember, hit that like, subscribe, comment button down below so we can continue to have this thing grow and continue to bring on cool guests so you guys continue to learn from some of the best in the game. It's your boy, Coach Coop, reporting live from the US of A right now. We got our boy, Coach T. Coach T is the owner of the Speed System, right? Explosive speed and movement specialist, certified strength and conditioning specialist, and believes that speed unlocks skill. Coach T has over 15 years of optimizing athletic performance. His expertise and passion have driven the creation of the Speed System, a comprehensive program that has transformed the performance of hundreds of athletes. His commitment to excellence and attention to detail have set him apart in the industry, earning him the trust and respect of athletes and coaches alike. Coach T, thank you and welcome, man.
That pleasure, man. Appreciate you guys having me on, man. I really do. I really, really do.
Man, so what got you started in all of this? Like, what brought you into the field and what made you want to stay on the speed
Oh
side?
man. Well, it all started after I played football at every level. I played professional for a little bit, and um, honestly, it was my strength coach. It was my coach who I learned from, who actually told me a long time ago. He was just like, he's like, hey, you should really consider, becoming a strength and conditioning coach. I was like, why? I gave him that look like, I'm like, come on, man. Like, I'm a pro athlete. I'm going to do this forever.
I ain't trying
And
to hear all
so
that right now.
I wasn't trying to hear all that. So I'm like, I'm a pro athlete. I'm going to do this forever. But he was like, you're really good. He's like, you're naturally good at it. And, it was crazy. I suffered a really bad injury. I broke my leg. I had a tib fib break. And, back in those days, back in the early 2000s, you'd get one of those breaks. It was like, you didn't know whether you were going to play again or not. And so I decided to join his staff and started to really learn, strength, speed, movement, and things like that. And once I was done with, once I got that and graduated, I ended up moving to Washington, D.C. and I started off as a personal trainer. I started off as a personal trainer just to kind of learn the business and everything. And then all of a sudden, I always had this dream of owning my own company. And so I started my company in 2008. It was under a different name then, but I started in 2008. And honestly, man, I can't say enough where when you really feel that you're walking in purpose, you know what I mean? Like you really feel like you're just walking in what you were meant to do because of the things of how everything aligned up before that. Like, things that I went through when I was in college and things that I learned when I was in college, the experiences, after college even led me to where I'm at. And that's the reason why I did it. And the reason why I continue to stay. I continue to stay because I was getting athletes. What's crazy is I started off with 5 athletes. And I started off with 5 athletes in the middle of a field in Centerville, Virginia. And I actually think I was a month away from, I was a month removed from surgery on my Achilles tendon. Now, I tore my Achilles tendon the very first time. And so I'm on crutches, just like trying to train and doing all this other stuff. And then finally, honestly, it just became, I stuck with it and, I've been blessed to be where I'm at now. So that's it really. It's just been, I was like, yeah, I love it, and that's the thing, the passion of it. I love it. I love what I do. Every single athlete that walks through my doors have the potential of getting better. And I want them to be able to see and to see them grow. I think that's the thing. And I always tell them the same thing. I'm like, when you get older, I say, when you go to college, I'm retiring. That hasn't happened yet. So
Been too many
that
years in
hasn't
the
happened.
game, loving it too much.
Oh my God, man. I had one girl, I usually get them early. I get them at 10, 11 years old and they stay with me throughout their entire, what I like to call athletic life cycle. They stay with me from the time they are in grade school all the way through college, and sometimes then I'll tell them, I'm like, hey, listen, here's the deal. When you go to college, when you commit, not even go to college, when you commit, I'm retired because this is just, you know, but now, it's crazy. I got athletes who've graduated and moved on to their real lives now. I got athletes who are just, who are still starting up. It's nuts, man. But I love it. That's why. That's
Yeah.
why I stay with it.
What is it like to take, a 10, 11 year old from, the very beginnings of where they're at in their athletic career to all the way to college and then maybe professional level? Like, what do you start them with? Like, what are you looking for when you get a 10 and 11 year old? And how are you, progressing them through? Because I mean, that's a challenge for a lot of our, listeners and coaches and athletes that are, getting some of these youth athletes and knowing where to start with them, because everybody sees, the end result on Instagram or the flashy stuff on Instagram and all over the
Right.
internet. How do you
Right.
take them from point A and get them to?
You start them with the basics, man. You got to start with A. And you got to make sure, if you're going to start them with point A, then you need to make sure that they mastered point A before you can move on to point B. And then once they, and then before they can move to point C, they have mastered point B. And that's the thing. And you always have to realize that it's a detail in everything. So when I'm training an athlete, the basic stuff, what is their, even from the time they walk up to me, right? The time they walk up to me, I always tell them, I give them the eye test. They don't know what that is. And I'm like, yeah, it may sound creepy, but I'm like, as soon as you walk up to me, I'm looking at imbalances, looking at, muscular imbalances. Do you walk, are you walking a different, a certain way? What's your gait like? That's just by them walking up to me. And then when we do our, start off with our stretches and dynamic stuff. So I'm looking at little things then to help me to be able to say, okay, well, and then of course we test, but I'm looking at those little things and that helps me to be able to build this program, specifically for that athlete. Um, and once I can build that for that specific athlete, that's when we, start to say, okay, let's start at point A. Let's master point A. And now we go to point B, point C, and, we build it from there, man. We start off building the foundation and then after that, we just build the athlete. So that's always been my philosophy, man. It's like, you can't, like you said, most people want to go and they want to do the flashy stuff. They do. And even when you see the pro guys do the flashy stuff, I'm looking at things that they're doing and I'm like, I'm looking at them like, you're going to be injured because your foot's not striking underneath your hip. You're going to be injured because, you're going to, I'm not saying you're going to be injured, but I say you're going to run a high risk of injury, because your ankles are unstable. I can see every time you hit the ground, the heel collapse. So I'm like, you wonder, why your Achilles is strained or anything like that. So it's like trying to keep them and to understand that it's a progress. It's a process and it's a slow, progressive state that an athlete has to do. And you set the goals for them and they achieve them and you just go from there, man. That's how I do it. I try to keep them off, cause they'll come back and tell me, we want to be able to do this. And I'm like, you got to master this first. Like,
We ain't even there yet.
I tell them yeah, I tell them all the time. I was like, you got to realize one drill that we do is always going to be stacked on to another drill that we do, which is going to stack on to another drill that we do, because that's the progression of it. So where, and so that we can get you to master this part, right? Master the basics. Now we can throw a little bit something else in you. Okay, you master that. Now we can throw something else on there. And it's, what it boils down to is, when it comes down to like all the big drills, you're going to be able to do all the fancy stuff. You're going to be able to move like these guys on the field because you've mastered the easy, functional, foundational stuff. So that's it. That's how
how
I do
how
it.
how hard is it to get, especially those younger kids, to understand the progression and get them to kind of, follow along and buy into that? Because, we're in a day and age where things happen fast. Even if you have your pro guys, like taking them back, like
Mm-hmm.
reverse engineering things, how do
Mm-hmm.
you voice that? How do you get them to, follow, like, hey, like, I know how to get you there, and I see
Mm-hmm.
that you're at a point to where like something might be off and might hinder you a little bit. So let's take it back and get you to that
Mm-hmm.
point again, but in a healthier way.
A lot of times it depends on who you're dealing with, right? Like if you're dealing with, the younger kids who are just starting off, it really just comes down to like, this is what I always tell them. I never speak nerd to them. I can nerd out and tell you all the terms and everything from the strength and conditioning handbook from I can sound really smart to them, but I don't want to. So I'm going to tell them, I tell them in the most basic layman terms possible. Say, hey, look, this is what you need to be doing. This muscle here, and I'll point to the muscle and things like that. And do they understand? Some of them do. But the thing is, for the younger kids, it's really about the experience during the sessions, really is what it comes down to, right? It's like if you're coming in there and you're just barking orders, or you're coming in there and you're just, doing drills. Instead, talk to them. I talk with them, I laugh, I joke with them just to kind of lighten up the mood. So not only is it that they're learning, but they're also having an experience when they come to me because what's going to bring them back? It's not the drills because they don't know. You know what I mean? It's going to be the experience. Oh, I like being around Coach T. I love, his energy. I love this and this. And once you get that part, they'll do the rest for you. Like they'll do the drills for you. When they get older, right? When they start getting older and it's funny because you'll get some kids from middle school, or you'll get like my younger kids, and we'll teach them, the basic stuff, the foundational stuff. Then all of a sudden, they'll come into high school, and now they're, and even though they're still working with me, but they're calling me now, or texting me, or emailing me now personally, saying, "Hey, I need to work on this because this is what my coach said," right? And I'm like, "Cool." And now we can start to nerd out a little bit. Now we can start to say, hey, look, this is what he means by this. And, and now they understand it more. So it really starts off with the experience of each session and then just going from there, man. And that's how I get them. But even with older guys, even with pro guys, when we do our certifications, I teach, it's a 4 level pyramid, right? 4 levels? Yeah, 4 level pyramid that I teach. And I tell them all the time, I'm like, I don't care whether you have, Susie coming in from, she's a 10-year old and, she could barely stand on one foot. Or if I got Tariq Hill coming in from the Miami Dolphins, they're all going to start at level one because I need to see what's their stability, what's their, I need to see, especially coming off of the season. But even still, I need to see the little things first because if you miss one little thing, it's over. It's over. You've really not you've ruined the athlete, but you've done more damage to that athlete if you miss one thing. So for the younger kids, it's just about the experience. For the older kids, then you can, because once you've built that rapport and that trust in them, then they're good, especially if they see their results.
Oh yeah. What are some challenges on the business side that you like faced, going into, creating your own business? Like, as you said, you went from the personal training side to then 2008, like you start your own thing. What was it like, learning that side? Because we're former athletes and we're trying to, you know, see the other side of
It's
life and see if we know what we're doing. How was it?
it's hard. And you know what's really crazy, man? You're looking at it now. What have you been in business since 2008? So it's 16 years now. 16 years, and I think I just got it right. That's what's crazy.
16 years and
I
just
think
now.
I'm just now getting it right because, you know, eh, it's a lot of things where, yeah, I learned some of the business stuff. I learned the scheduling, I learned a little bit of marketing and things like that, here and there that I picked up. Word of mouth has probably been my biggest, number one marketing tool that I've had. So it's pretty much been easy. Also, you gotta, back in 2008, there weren't a lot of sports performance trainers or strength and conditioning coaches or speed trainers or anything like that. So I came in the right time. Now I would probably say the boom really hit about 2014, 2015 is when a boom came. And, so luckily I had built my reputation to be able to, as not just, a good trainer, but also, hey, these sessions are going to be, they're not going to be like, I'm not going to be in grind mode all the time. It's going to be informational. It's going to be informative. Um, so, like I said, when I say I'm just getting it right is because, as much as the business model I had was a real, how can I say it? It was like, it was more client friendly, you know what I mean, than anything else. Now it's more business friendly. And honestly, it took a business coach when I tell you, man, that dude would get on me. Like he would have me in there, man. I have to meet at his house at 8:30 once a month, right? For an hour and a half. And it's a brutal hour and a half. Like he is dissecting everything I've done. And it's bad because you think that you're like, hey man, I've been in business for 16 years, man. Like, come on, man. Like I've been doing something right. You're like, you're lucky. You've been in business for 16 years. And I'm like, okay, touche. And so, but I'm so thankful for him because he really did open my eyes to a lot of things that I was doing wrong personally. You know what I mean? And it's, so it, transferring from just being an athlete to the business side, right? Like I've seen sports performance companies come and go. I've seen, I've seen them come and go. I've seen them be able to, they want to, or I've seen athletes come in and be like, oh, they want to start training and stuff like that. And it's hard. It really is. And it's not for the weak. Being an entrepreneur, period, isn't for the weak, but being, in the sports, and especially in a saturated market, because the more and more you look, they're popping up everywhere. I was in Florida the last couple of years before I moved back up to Virginia. And man, let me tell you, that was crazy. That was nuts because it was, we had a sports performance guy literally behind us. Like
Yep.
his
Yep.
facility was behind ours. I'm like, what in the world? So it was crazy, man. But that's what I learned, man. Is you have to be patient, but you can't operate out of fear. And that's the biggest thing that I learned from my business coaches is you can't operate out of fear. You can't be afraid of anything. So you have to be able to, if it doesn't work, if it fails, then you learn from that failure, but you can't be afraid to fear. I mean, it can't be afraid to fail. So yeah, that was hard, but it took a while. Like I said, I just got it right. I
Yeah.
just got it right.
Now I'm from Florida, so I know how it is in Florida. It's a
Oh
competitive market, because I mean, you already
yeah,
got kids that come out of Florida that are fast, right? And then it's hot year round, so everybody wants to be down there, and there's the tax system too
exactly,
also helps to be in Florida. um,
exactly.
but like it gets a little crazy down there, especially if you get to South Florida. South Florida,
Yeah,
everybody's trying to be down there.
that's where I
But
was. I was in Fort Lauderdale. It's
oh yeah,
it's yeah.
I know
Ah,
what it was like.
they can have that. And I'm like,
Yeah.
man, and don't get me wrong, I'm not afraid of the competition, but I'm like, this is crazy.
Right.
Like,
But there's
this
got to
is
be a
nuts.
certain level of like, you talking about somebody right behind you. Like now we're just like, we're trying to attract the same clientele. You know what I mean? We're trying to work with the same
Yeah,
people.
exactly, exactly,
But
exactly,
on top of that, like
exactly.
you say you swallow the pride a little bit, get a little humility, and work with a business coach. How was that for you? You know what I mean? Like, can you give us like some things that you guys would go over, in that monthly meeting? Because I mean, I'm sure you walked into the first one and you're like,
Yeah.
oh shit, I'm doing all this stuff right. Like, I shouldn't have too much to worry about. Then he brings you back down to earth, and then the next meeting you're going into, you're like, shit, do I even go into this one? Like,
Dude, listen, he would tell me too. It was so funny because he would tell me, he would be like, listen, you're not going to want to come back. Like, he's like, you're not going to want to come back to this. And so, it was kind of where we broke down pricing. We broke down clientele. We broke down pricing. Looked at my website. He looked at different things and he was just he just was, and I'm like, I'm sitting there, my eyes wide open. I'm like, dude, like, what is happening right now? And so he's just like, he's just talking. And he's telling me like all these things I've done wrong. He's giving me nothing that I've done right, by the way. Right. So it's like, I,
just like being
I
back in
felt
film
like,
again.
yeah, right. I'm sitting there feeling like, okay, that's like, you know what it was? It was like, I remember when, they said the New England Patriots, when they were undefeated that year, when they had Randy Moss and all those guys, and they were going into the last game of the season, and they interviewed, I want to say it was either Wes Welker or somebody, they interviewed him and says, what are film sessions like? Like, you're undefeated. Like, film sessions can't even be that hard. And Wes Welker looked at him and goes, "Are you kidding me?" He goes, "You would think we lost every game because he focusing on what we did right. He's focusing on everything we did wrong." And that's the kind of coach I had is he focused on everything I was doing wrong. He didn't care about what I did right. Cause, in his saying was, if I get in a car and I set my destination on my GPS to, go wherever, eventually I'm going to get there. Right? He's like, but it's how fast you get there, and how efficient that you get there. And I'm like, never thought about it like that. But it was, he broke down everything from my website. Like, hey, your website is just stupid. He's like, it just doesn't make any sense. He goes, he's like, all right, he says, look at your pricing list. And he asked me a bunch of questions and I couldn't answer the questions. So he would and I know he's not mad at me. He's just frustrated at me, but he's like looking at me, how in the world, and I'm like, and so he says, I'm looking at your goals that you said that you have set for yourself for this company, your short term, your 1 year goal, your 3 year goal, your 5 year goal, and of course your exit strategy. And he says, nothing you're doing right now is going to get you there. And that was like the wake up call of them all. It was like, you have to, the one thing, a lot of business people have always told me was you set the goal and you work backwards. You say, okay, well, what's going to get you there? And you have to be step by step and you have to be just as detailed like I am in my training. I have to be just as detailed in the business side of it. So it's like, but, we went over a lot of things, man, like the website, how the website should be, it should be, I guess the word's interactive, where, it's going to grab you right now and it caters to the clients that you're looking for. And, then he says your pricing sheets have to he's like, you have to treat it, like my goal this year is opening up a facility in Virginia, opening up our first one in Virginia, like our own, like right now we share space and I'm like, we want our own. And he's like, you have to treat it like you already have it. And I was like, and he says, if you treat it like you already have it, you'll set your prices accordingly. And I was like, okay. He's like, because you can't just get it and then set your prices. And now your client's going to look at you like, yeah, we're not doing that. Right. So it's like, but he's like, yeah. So that was the big part. It was really just kind of going off of what, excuse me, it was going off of like what, I really wanted, my goals and everything, and then how to be able to set my goals and how to be able to price things right and market things the right way and making sure that we're going after, that you're really doing what you're supposed to do and what every business guru always tells you. You know what I mean? It's like, it's funny because, a lot of the things that I've heard, through business coaches online, he's telling me right now. But not only is he telling me, he's also showing me. And I think that was the biggest thing. But it was, dude, that's a boot camp and a half, man. I'm like, ugh.
With all that knowledge, that also that you're, applying to your athletes, how are you turning that around and helping, coaches that are, just now getting started in the industry, or even coaches like yourself that have 16 years in the game and think they have it all
Mhm.
right, and they're trying to, and then get the wake up call and they're like, oh shoot, like there are other things I need to work on. How are you, using all this knowledge to help other coaches?
So one thing that I do, man, is we have a certification for for how we train. And one of the reasons why I started that certification, believe it or not, was I think it was maybe 2017 is when I got the idea of it. And I said, because I was seeing a lot of guys, you see the guys on Instagram and the athletes, the former athletes and everybody, and they want to come in. And the first thing I see them doing is just a whole bunch of footwork drills and all this other stuff, but not really teaching any other part of the game. And I'm like, okay, I'm not mad. Hey, do you? But at least, what I wanted to do was start a certification, just kind of going over the basics. Nothing that we're going to be nerding out about. Not going to be a whole lot of strength and conditioning terms or anything like that. But what I did was just to kind of create it, break it down, how we train, what to look for, look at the little details. What is it that and just kind of going from there. That's the knowledge that I was able to kind of share with them on that part. I'm looking also too at doing second part to it. And the second part is going a little bit more in detail, really kind of digging into the biomechanics part, but there's also going to be a part about the business side as well. Because a lot of people don't, one of my good friends, he's a coach up in Virginia. He teaches wide receivers and things like that. And him and I always, every time he sees me, him and I always, talking. And, we were talking. He's like, yeah, I was like, yeah, man, I was like, you have to adjust accordingly, adjust your pricing accordingly, adjust everything accordingly, because the more high in demand that you get, that's what it is, supply and demand, dude. And so he was just like, so he's like, yeah, he's like, I know. He's like, I did it. I felt bad at first. I was like, don't. I was like, never operate out of that fear. So I want to, so I don't have problems with people people DM me all the time and ask me different things. They ask me about coaching. They ask me about the business side. I have no problems, sharing that knowledge, because it's at the end of the day, you know, there's no need to withhold this information from anybody. It really isn't, because just because, okay, it could be someone down the street from me trying to start up a sports performance company. Okay, cool. Right. And they may ask me, hey, what, ask me questions or whatever, and how to do this and how to do this. I'll definitely help them. You know what I mean? I'll definitely help them. I'm not going to say no, but like, well, you might come competition. But what I'm going to do is, because I know there's certain things that sets me apart. And if people want to go over there because they enjoy that person better, then okay, cool. That's fine with me, but no problem sharing. And I try to share as much knowledge as possible, because it's at the end of the day, it really comes down to the athletes. And a lot of these times, these athletes don't have, I mean, as crazy as it is, they have all the resources in the world. They do, but they don't know how to put it together. You know what I mean? Like, they don't know how to put the resources. I tell people all the time, you can grab 10 speed drills off of YouTube, right? But nobody's there to tell you what you're doing wrong, what needs to be done, how to fix the mistakes, because that's what training is. Training is about doing it so much. Not that you don't get it wrong. It's so that when you do get it wrong, guess what you can do? You can fix it mid-game. And that's what training comes down to. And like, so I have no problems sharing that information as long as you're looking at, you know, helping the athlete and really making that person better in every aspect of their lives. I'm cool with it.
I mean, I think that's super important because, a lot of us get into coaching because we want to help the athlete or we want to help the person that we were when we were 15 years old and didn't have the
Right.
same access,
Right. Exactly.
but then we get into it and we forget, and like we get into it and we're like, all right, well, now we need to make money and like we want to have all these athletes and now we're not going to ask for help or anything like that. Like
Hmm.
there's no point of
Hmm.
it. And what we're doing is correct, and I think there's that huge lag, especially nowadays with, like I said, social media. Everybody feels like all they need to do is pump out content and they're doing the perfect
That's
thing.
it. That's it. That's it. And and that's the thing, right? It's like you can pump out content, you can do this, you can do this. And I'm like, people always tell me, and I listen, one thing I never do, I never speak bad on people. You know
Right.
what I mean? I, I never speak bad on people. But people ask me, well, what do you think about this? And I'm like, and that's all you'll
Probably,
get from me.
probably the same reason why you send it to me is what I think.
Yeah. So they're like,
Yeah.
oh, what do you think about this? And I'm like, and now, I'll give my honest opinion on what I would or wouldn't do,
Right.
instead of just kind of like bashing them or telling them, oh, that's trash or whatever. Like now, no,
Yeah.
because I mean, they got clients, so their clients believe in them. But yeah, that's
Yeah.
it. Yeah,
I
it's,
mean, there's a reason why they posted it, right? There's probably some knowledge to it and some things in there that can be gained
mm,
from it. I mean, you don't know, and we also like, again, most of the training things that you see on social media are all just like little segments, little bits and pieces that
mm-hmm,
have been put together.
mm-hmm,
So we don't know what
mm-hmm.
led up to that. But if
Right.
you look back at Coach T at 15 years old, and you're looking now, what would be something you tell him now that you wish you heard then?
What you mean when I was an athlete?
Yeah, when you're no, when you
Uh,
were 15 years old.
when I was 15 years old,
Yeah.
and right, something that I know now that I would tell him for then. Ooh, That is a good one. Honestly, it would be no fear. It would be no fear. You know, it would be no fear because it is something that I think, we didn't have, in the 90s, we didn't have sports psychologists. We didn't have, we didn't have sports psychologists. We didn't have speed trainers. Our speed trainers when we ran track in the summer. I mean,
Yep.
in the spring. So we didn't have that. And so we never had that mentor every single day to tell you something that they've gone through. And, I think one thing that I suffered from when I was from high school, college, and even pro was performance anxiety. Like it was a huge part of me. And I didn't realize it till maybe a couple years ago when I was listening to a sports psychologist. I'm like, oh my God, I had that. Like, so, I would definitely tell him no fear. Just in whatever you want to do, no fear. And as hard as that is to sound, or as hard as that is to take in and really be like, what do you mean no fear? But like, no fear, man. Like my trust in God is big now. So that's a huge thing and a huge part of my life. And I definitely know that if I were to say that then, if I were to go back and to tell my 15-year-old me then, like, hey, no, look, have no fear. If you don't take anything else from the Bible right now, take trust in him, right, with all your heart. And don't lean into your own understandings because your own understandings will lead you into fear. And guess what? If I can tell him that, I'm good. Because that's a big part. When I look back on 15-year-old me, that's a big part of me. Big part of me is fear. So
I,
yeah,
I
it's
love it.
yeah, yeah,
And coach, I
yeah.
know right now you're on vacation, you're in the DR, but we got our last segment, right? It's the 60-second round,
Sure.
right? It's 10 questions,
Okay.
one word answers. Are you ready
Uh-huh.
for
Uh-oh. I'm
it?
ready.
All right, here we go. 6 seconds on the clock. Favorite post workout snack?
Oh, protein shake. Oh, I love a protein shake.
Favorite sport?
Football.
Dream vacation spot?
Maldives.
Guilty pleasure food?
Man, if I got cheesecake,
Best concert you ever been to?
Lincoln Park at Yankee
Favorite
Stadium.
favorite
That's a tough one. Horror. Yeah, horror.
dream or best gym you've ever been to?
That's a good one. Man, best gym I've ever been to. Oh my God, let me think here. I gotta say, this is a tough one. This is a really tough. Oh my God, best gym ever. Okay, I'll tell you this real quick. Best gym I've been. How when they remade the University of Tennessee strength and conditioning room. That's the best one I've been to.
Dream car?
Oof. A '69 Mustang.
Would you rather be in an octagon with a gorilla, tiger, or a bear?
Probably the Tiger.
And that is it, coach. We appreciate your time. We appreciate you coming on and dropping a whole bunch of knowledge, for a lot of these coaches, especially former athletes like ourselves that are just now getting out of the game and trying to learn business and trying to go into this side of life. Man, thank you so much.
No problem, man. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. I enjoyed my time, man. Really did.
Of course. And we're out.